I've been speaking on losing energetic weight, how emotions can manifest in our physical body, how feelings that we don't feel can get stuck in our physical body, and what that looks like for me. I can share pictures of me not listening to my intuition, not listening to the signals that my body is sending me, to me breaking out in hives, to me breaking out in rashes on my neck because I'm not using my voice, I'm not speaking up for myself. I can share those pictures, I can type words, but when it comes down to it, there's certain things that have to be expressed verbally. I'm going to tell a story today. It's not a pretty story. It's not something I'm proud of either. I have a lot of Scorpio placements and I have a lot of Capricorn placements. I like my privacy. I enjoy that I can share so much of my life with others to help others. A lot of what I've learned is from experience. What I share is from experience. When talking about losing energetic weight, I have to tell the story of how I moved through so much energetically that I lost 7 pounds of physical weight overnight. This is not a story for children. I'm gonna keep it PG-13. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie and I help people find happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives through finding a balance between their mind, body, and soul. One of the things that has helped me grow the most, that has helped me to find the most balance, has been getting comfortable with the feelings and the emotions that I feel when they come up. It's something that's so much easier said than done. It takes a lot of self-awareness, it takes a lot of self-reflection, and you have to notice your patterns. In the past, I have struggled with a pattern of eating my emotions. Instead of feeling what I'm feeling, I would go to weed and food, and I would drown those emotions in those two outlets. That has been a huge hurdle for me to have to move through. I've also been discussing, a lot of us are feeling like we're regressing. Is it regression or is it growth? I mentioned that sometimes we have to revisit old patterns in order to release them. It's one thing to be aware of the pattern, it's another thing to break the pattern. In 2018, I met, I'm gonna call him number one, at the gym. We talked for a while, it never went anywhere. I was still traveling for work at the time, didn't really think much of it, it just faded out. Last year, I re-met number one. We were both in different places and we started to pick up where we left off. It was a feeling like I had never felt before with a man. There was such a deep mental and emotional connection. I could literally hear each other's thoughts. I knew what he was thinking, he knew what I was thinking. The emotional connection was so deep that for both of us, it felt like we needed to take things slow, to not rush into the physical. So we were just very present with each other for a couple of months. He was great. Like he was great. And we got in a fight over a Celsius drink. He said he was very tired, so he was gonna drink a Celsius, and I was like, that's like the worst thing that you could drink. I'm someone who doesn't believe in consuming things that are artificial, and this is just like a drink full of artificial shit, and I'm just like, how can you do that? And it turned into a fight to the point where we both went into our egos, like, you have a nice life, nice knowing you, da-da-da-da-da. My body was ready. I was so excited to sleep with him. Watching that prospect fade away was difficult for me. 2 or 3 days later, we hadn't spoken, and I messaged him, are you ready to kiss and make up now? And I expected him to be like, yeah. But he was not like, yeah, at all. He just rejected the shit out of me. He said all the right things to trigger my fear of rejection, my former fear of rejection. I had moved through it emotionally. I spent the last 4 or 5 years really digging into that, moving through that. I had done the emotional work to heal it. So it was triggering me and I could see it. I knew what it was. I understood what it was. I had the awareness there, but I did not want to feel it. I did not want to feel that feeling. Instead of dealing with the feelings of rejection that I was feeling, my ego made it all about the physical. My ego was like, I'm ready, body is ready, I want to have sex. Since it wasn't going to be with number one, what I did was I went and contacted number two. About 2 years prior, number two and I were a thing. We got to know each other a very little bit. He told me he loved me. He told me that I'm the perfect woman, that he wants to marry me. He will wait as long as he needs to wait. We didn't know anything about each other. So for him to say all these things, for him to think I'm perfect, like, I am far from perfect. This story will fucking solidify that. I can't be in a relationship with such a big imbalance that will only lead to resentments down the line. It's just never gonna work if we are not seeing each other as equals. And if he's seeing me as perfect, which is so much further above, that the only place that I have to go from there is down. When number one rejected me, I hit up number two because I knew number two would never reject me. And I was like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? He's like, it's so nice to hear from you, da 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 da. I have plans tomorrow. I was like, no worries. About an hour later, he's like, hey, like, I canceled my plans. What were you thinking? I just got a new house. If you want to come by, I can show you. I got a new boat. I was well aware of what I was doing. I even said it to a girlfriend of mine. I just don't want to feel the feelings of rejection from number one. I did not want to touch those feelings. I had moved through those feelings, apparently. I went to number two's house the next night and we slept together. First time that he and I slept together, it was amazing. It was like I don't want to say the best because like I don't like to label things the best, but like very well could have been the best ever. This time I could not get there mentally. I did an orgasm. I felt so bad because I recognized while we were in the middle of it that I was just using this man. I just felt like shit. I just felt like shit. And on my way home, I decided to revisit another old pattern. Now I'm really fully feeling that feeling of rejection. I'm also feeling the feeling of self-abandonment. I'm feeling so much, and I did not want to feel those feelings. I was like, no, this is so old. I'm past this. I didn't want to acknowledge that I was there again. After all this time, after all this work on myself, how am I here? Instead of going home and sitting with it, I stopped at McDonald's on the way home and I bought like $25 worth of McDonald's, and I went home. I binge ate so much fucking food that I couldn't even lay down. I was so full that I had to sit up for like 2.5 more hours. Of course, I'm not gonna sit up and sit with my feelings, so I sat up smoking weed. I was well aware of what I was doing. I went to sleep, I slept like shit. I woke up the next morning to a message from number one. And he was like, I'm really sorry about our argument. I'm sorry about how I treated you. I'm not willing to lose you over a Celsius drink. This is stupid. We were both in our ego. I'd like to start over. So you mean to tell me I just slept with someone, smoked a ton of weed. I don't smoke weed like that anymore. Ate McDonald's. Like, I don't eat shit. It wasn't even like I ate like, oh, some pizzas. I ate McDonald's. I went to the bottom of the fucking barrel. All for this guy to turn around and apologize and do the right thing and be the good man. Well, I feel like shit. I started talking to him, and about an hour into the conversation, I had this feeling like I have to tell him. Like, he has to know. And I did. And I was like, I was feeling really rejected by you, and I was really surprised that you said no when I said, do you want to kiss and make up? I went and slept with someone last night. He was like, how did it make you feel? I was like, well, I feel like shit, honestly. He was like, do you think you're gonna do it again? And I was like, no, I don't see myself ever doing that again. Coming back to what I mentioned in the beginning, sometimes we have to revisit old patterns just so we can finally break the pattern. That pattern made me feel like such shit that I can't be present with it anymore. I will not go back there. I will sit with the uncomfortable feelings the next time. They've come up a bunch of times this year, like, whew, and I'm dealing with them in healthier ways. He was really nice about it. He was like, on the one hand, I'm disappointed, I'm upset, kind of grossed out. I was kind of grossed out with myself, so I understand that. He's like, but on the other hand, you telling me is honesty and integrity, and I really respect you for that. And he's like, I just need to sit with it a little bit. Once I admitted it out loud to him, it became real and it became concrete. I went home that night and I felt all of those feelings. I felt the feeling of the rejection. I felt the feeling of escaping, self-abandonment. I felt this feelings of disrespect towards myself. I felt the neglect, the pain that was so deep. Going into feeling it in our physical body, it was mostly between here and 6 inches under my navel, so like my pelvic region. It was all within my torso. It hurt so bad. I was sitting on the floor in this room. I knew I needed to move it out. So I started doing a yoga video for the hips because that's where we hold a lot of our trauma. I started moving through it, and there was one position that I was in. I started feeling it coming out of my right hip. And the instructor on the video started to prompt me to move out of that position and into another position. And I was like, nope. It was like, where the fuck is the remote? I paused it and I sat in it because it was right there and it was ready to come up, and I just felt into it. I didn't push it away the way I had for the last few days. I sat with that discomfort and I let that discomfort come up, and it was physically painful. And when I tell you it physically hurt, I mean it physically hurt. It felt like someone was ripping a knife through my body. At one point in my heart, it felt like someone was like squeezing my heart. It hurt so bad. And that was myself. That was the pain that I inflicted upon myself. No one else gave me that pain. As I was feeling into that pain, as I was feeling the squeezing and the ripping, I was crying. Like, I was like in the fetal position on a wooden floor, just like, like one of those like big, painful cries. I have noted before that it only takes about 90 seconds to fully feel a feeling before it starts to dissipate. These feelings were so old and they were with me for so long that it took me longer than 90 seconds to feel. Sat with those feelings for like 3 hours or so. I remember when they started to subside, I felt so much better. And it was like, I immediately knew I had to go back there in order to bring it up. I had done so much of the work to notice the patterns, to be aware of it, but I hadn't had the opportunity to be with it. I was so displaced from the pain, from the self-abandonment, from the escapism, that I didn't know how to pull it out of my body in any other way besides touching it all again. I had to touch the rejection. I had to touch the self-abandonment. I had to touch the escapism in order to feel it and then to be present with it. Not only is it about moving these energies out, but it's also sometimes about revisiting them in order to pull them up and pull them out. I lost 7 pounds that night. I had been so bloated, so uncomfortably bloated. The bloating was gone, and I lost 7 pounds overnight. Could it have been water weight? I cried my eyes out. I mean, sure, I'm sure that there's like some scientific explanation for it, fine. But for me, knowing, I just closed a chapter that I've been fighting for my life with for like 2 decades. I just closed 2 chapters. Oh shit, I closed 3 chapters. While this isn't necessarily the prettiest story, and I'm not proud of myself or how I handled this situation, I am proud of myself for how I moved through it. And I would not change a thing. If I had the opportunity to change the whole thing, I would not change anything. I do not regret it at all. I understand that it had to happen that way. And I trust that it had to happen that way. And I trust that I have moved that shit out. I trust that that is no longer with me. Since then, I've faced a lot of rejection. I've handled it a lot better. I'm very proud of myself for how I've handled it since then. It's one thing to be aware of the pattern. It's one thing to be aware of the habits of whatever it is. It's another thing to act, and it's another thing to act differently. Since then, I am able to act differently. I want to thank you for watching this. It's one thing to have felt the feelings and to move through the feelings. It's another thing to be able to admit it out loud to anyone, let alone to the internet and God knows who. I thank you not only for coming back to my channel, but for helping me to move through something else. There are a lot of fears that I have around putting myself out there and putting my very realness out there. I can tell stories about the lessons I've learned all day, but the experiences that garnered those lessons is something that's a little bit harder for me to share. It's very personal. As much as I share, I am a very private person. So this was not easy for me. Thank you again so much for coming back to my channel. My name is Jackie. I help people find happier, healthier, much healthier mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, healthier lives, but most importantly, more fulfilling lives through finding a balance between their mind, body, and soul. I make new videos here every Monday and Friday, so don't forget to click subscribe, and I will see you at the beginning of next week.